Disclaimer: efforts have been made to not to infringe with any copyright. If so, it may be brought to our notice for its acknowledgement in future editions. No part of this digital content be reproduced, stored, or distributed in any or by any means either on paper or electronic media unless authorized. Digital content for candidates with speech and hearing disability. Sector: Media and Entertainment. Subsector: Animation, Gaming. Occupation: Animator. Reference ID: MES/Q0701. Version 1.0. NSQF Level 4. Chapter 6: Produce 3D Animation. Unit 6.3: Viewing the Maya 3D Scene. Key Learning Outcomes: Application of 3D animation techniques on Maya software. Viewing the Maya 3D Scene. Camera Tools. Orthographic view's appearance is 2D because the projection of the displayed object using parallel projection in only for two axes at one time. You can view the scene in a three-dimensional manner when you use the perspective view for viewing the scene. Perspective view in Maya. Workflow overview. By using multiple primitives like scaled, moved, and rotated position, columns are made. First, you need to create the first column with all components which are named, and it should be positioned accurately. Then you will be able to create other duplicates and will group it. For the pedestal, need to create a polygonal cube. Select Create, then Polygon Primitives, then Cube, which is in the main menu. Workflow overview. In the window known as Polygon Cube window, need to select Edit, then Settings Reset, and then the following options are set as width 1.75, height 0.6, depth 1.75. At their default settings, the other options should be left. Then click Create in the cube polygon, which is in the option window. After that, cube primitive is created by Maya and it should be positioned as the origin. Origin position in Maya. Move the cube upward y-axis from the side view, so on the top surface of the temple base it rests. Rename the cube column pedestal in the channel box. For the shaft, need to create a polygonal cylinder. Need to select Create, then Polygon Primitives, then Cylinder from the main menu bar. Create cylinder. Then select Edit, Reset Settings from the window known as Polygon Cylinder Options window. And then Set the following options: radius 0.5. Change radius. At their default settings, leave the other options as it is. Click Create from the window known as Polygon Cylinder. Options window, Polygonal Cylinder for the shaft in the Polygon Cylinder options window. Click Create. Stretch the cylinder upward in y-axis in side view so that the top surface of column pedestal it stands or rests. In the channel box, rename the cylinder column shaft. Rename from here. Viewing objects in shaded mode. Until now, we have seen objects in wireframe mode, that is, only outlines. But through Maya, possibility of shaded images is realized. To display the objects in smooth shaded mode, enlarge your perspective view and dolly and tumble the scene so you can easily view what you have completed so far. Shade mode. Select shading, then smooth shade from the panel menu, then dark gray color opaque object displays on scene display. For the remaining lessons, you can work with either shaped or unshaped mode of the objects. Grouping objects. Grouping objects speed up transformation process. There are many objects of the primitive in Maya are also known as combined or grouped objects. Like 6 flat square or planes combined together and make one NURBS cube primitive. Likewise, hierarchy is also a combination of group of plane objects, and the combination of hierarchies represent that how all the objects share or exchanges their characteristics and attributes. Grouping objects. For making the column, group the objects. Click Shift to each of the object until all the 4 objects in the scene view are selected. In an orthographic view, drag around the column objects one large bounding box. As a part of your selection, importantly, you do not have to select temple base. Select objects. Select Edit, then Group, which is in the main menu. Select Edit, then Reset Settings. In the window known as Group Options window, and then the following options need to set. Group under Parent. At their default settings, all the other options should be left. In the Group Options window, click Group. Select Group from Edit. The hypergraph. The hypergraph shows us the objects and their dependencies which might be structural or functional or logical or physical along with repercussions of grouping. For viewing the hypergraph, select Panels, Layout, 2 panels stacked from the View menu. Hypergraph. Then there are 2 separate view menu splits from the scene view, titled as viewing panels, and each has its own view menu. Then you will be able to view scene in the upper view and in the other hypergraph. Select Panels, Hypergraph panel, Hypergraph hierarchy from the lower panel menu. Below the Scene View panel, the Hypergraph panel will display. Hypergraph hierarchy. For ensuring hypergraph is displaying in the scene hierarchy, needs to select hierarchy icon from the top of the hypergraph panel. Select View, Frame All from the hypergraph panel. Then in the scene, all the objects are displayed in hierarchy which are in hypergraph. Frame All. To rename the parent node in the hypergraph, as top parent level of the hierarchy is selected, all column groups become by default selected. Right-click on the parent node and rename it. Now that the column is grouped, you need to position it at one corner of the temple base. To position the column on the temple base, switch to wireframe mode by pressing 4 on the standard keyboard. To active all the column in scene view, select Parent in Hypergraph. To place the column at the front corner of the temple base, needs to use the Move tool in the scene view. Rename in Hypergraph. To create a duplicate copy of the column. The column which are still selected in the hypergraph, then select Edit, Duplicate Special which are in the main menu. Then the window appears known as Duplicate Special Options. Now select Edit, Reset Settings from the Duplicate Special Options window, and then the following options need to set. Number of copies 1. At their default settings, all the other options have to be left. Click Duplicate Special from the window known as Duplicate Special Options window. Duplicate Special. In the scene, an additional column objects are visible or shown by the updates of hypergraph view. Then from the original copy, it takes prefix name in the copy and then it is labeled as column 1. It appears in the scene view like nothing was exactly copied or duplicated. Then it is also placed in the same position as original position because nothing looks like duplicate. Then both objects are on top with no difference. Duplicate objects. For positioning on the base, move the duplicate column in the position. For ensuring that column 1, which is in hypergraph, is clicking on the top node so that it will be reflects in the scene view. For positioning column 1 on its adjacent corner of temple base, move tool is used in the scene view. Temple base. Click the shortcuts of 4 view layouts which is in the toolbox. Then 4 view layout is visible in place of workspace and there is no longer display of hypergraph. 4 view in Maya. Selection modes and mask. There are 3 main types of selection modes: hierarchy, object, and component. You can use these modes in order to mask or limit the selection of other objects in order to select only the types of items you want. In the objects, the default selection mode is set when you first start Maya. While working in Maya, this is very useful for selection work. If there is less exceptions to use the hierarchy and combinations selection mask. Choose the combinations icon and select by hierarchy in the status line. On the line, which is known as status line, in that you need to choose the select by hierarchy icon. While selecting items by hierarchy, make sure selection are done from its root or parent node. Then press or click Shift, click column and column 1 for selecting it simultaneously in the scene view. Status line. Pivot points. In 3D space, there is a specific position for pivot point. Then it is used as a reference for the conversion or transformation of any objects. Pivot. There is a pivot point in all objects like group, curve, and surface. To group the two columns, select Edit, Group in the main menu bar. For ensuring the selection of column and column 1. In the Group Options window, select Edit, Reset Settings. Select the following options. Group under, Parent. In the Group Options window, click Group. Group Parent. In the hierarchy, the options are together in Maya group and at the origin pivot point is positioned. To duplicate and rotate the group, with the selection of the column group, you need to go to the main menu bar, select Edit, then Duplicate Special. In the window, there is a Duplicate Special option window. From there, need to select Edit, Reset Settings, and then following options need to be set. Rotate 090. Click or press Duplicate Special, which is in the Duplicate Special options window. Then in each and every copies, columns are rotated and duplicated by 90 degrees. Duplicate and rotate. Components and attributes. For comfortable and easily work on the temple roof, need to change the columns to its template mode and the base display. To template the base and column, in the scene select all the options, then in the side view, set to hierarchy with the help of selection mask. Select display, then object display, then template from the main menu bar. Then all the objects which are selected, it becomes template. To create and position a torus primitive for the entablature, select create, then NURBS primitive, then torus, which is in the main menu bar. Select edit, reset settings in the NURBS torus options window, and then following options needs to set. Radius 8.5, click create in the window of NURBS torus option window. Create torus. Change or rename the torus primitive entablature in the channel box. At the top of the columns, for the purpose of rest, move the entablature vertically in the scene. Channel box. Components. All objects in Maya have a transform and a shape node. You need to modify all the component information. For changing or making the shape of the entablature which is above or far beyond the basis scale transformation. To select components of the entablature dolly is used. Then selection mode needs to set to the component mode. Wireframe of entablature requires right-click on that and from the pop-up menu select Control Vertex. Then we can see pops up menu is also known as marking menu, which is used for selection of quick operation which is related to the objects where in the mouse you do right click. To change the shape of entablature, use the move tool by moving the vertices up vertically. Need to do right click once the wireframe of the entablature and then from the pop-up menu select mode which is named as object mode. Marking menu. In the entablature, as its top the roof for the temple rest, by using 1/2 of the spare primitive, you can able to create the roof for the temple. To create a roof for the temple, select Create, NURBS Primitives, Spare. Select Edit, then Reset Settings in the NURBS Spare Options window, and then the following options requires setting. Sweep Angle Start 0. Sweep Angle End 180. Radius 8.75. Number of sections 8 and number of spans 4. Rename the half-spare temple roof. The roof needs to be rotated at 90 degrees about the x-axis and positioned on top of the entablature. Create sphere. To rotate and position the roof of the entablature, for pointing up the parts of dome, need to rotate the roof in the side view. For placing it near and close to the top edge of the entablature, move the roof. For the appearance of sphere in slightly squashed form, needs to scale the roof with its z-axis. Scale from z-axis. To untemplate objects. By Hierarchy and Combinations button, needs to choose Select on the status line. By Hierarchy, Template button, choose the Select on the status line. For ensuring only templated objects will be affected after the selection of hierarchy. For selecting templated objects simultaneously, drag a selection box all around the objects in the scene which is in the scene view. Select Display, then Object Display, and then Untemplate from the main menu. Then choose the Select by Hierarchy root button that is on the status line. Untemplate. The Attribute Editor. The editor, which provides all the related information about the different nodes and their attributes for the objects, materials in the scene, is known as Attribute Editor. Attribute Editor. To view object attributes using the Attribute Editor, select Temple Roof in the scene view, then it becomes the selected object. On the status line, you need to click the Show Height icon to view the Attribute Editor. The Attribute Editor is used to represent and display the required attributes for the temple roof, and under the various tabs, temple roof objects appears for different attributes. All tab shows a node. Attribute Editor. Surface materials. To control the shininess, color, and also the reflectivity, the animator uses shader, surface material, new material can be assigned to the temple objects. Click right on the entablature to select object mode. Select all the objects by dragging the selection box around the objects. Then the rendering menu set has to be selected from the status line using the menu. The menu for rendering is displayed as the main menu changes. Choose Lightnings, Shading, then select Assign New Material, then select Blend. Rename Blend 1 Shading to Temple Shader. This is done in Attribute Editor. Surface Editor. Editing attributes of shading material. Using the gray box which is at the right of color, the attribute changed. Color chooser then appears. Using the color wheel, the hexagonal wheel, the sand color can be chosen, except to choose the color chosen. Color wheel. Going back to the menu of Attribute Editor menu, the selected menu item is chosen and then select the temple base from that list. To check its attributes, choose the tab Temple Shader Node. If in case this tab is not visible, you can choose the display arrow which is on the right side of the tabs. Use the show or hide icon to close the editor. Thank you.